Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you what I've been listening to lately in my car. That's usually where I listen to music the most because it's just a lot more interesting for me, I guess. I love driving around and listening to music. So I listen to CDs. That's mainly what I do in my car. I love CDs. I love physical media, and so I listen to a lot of CDs. It's my favorite way. I also have some records, but I love CDs the most. I hardly ever listen to digital music. I mean, sometimes I listen to stuff on YouTube if I don't have it on CD, but that's about it. But anyway, let's get into what I've been listening to lately. So first off, we have Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. Now, let me start off by saying that I'm somebody that I really like to listen to the band stuff in chronological order. I usually search for the CDs that I want from them and then see if I can find, the next one, the next one, the next one, because I want to get the full context, because obviously I'm starting a little bit late on a lot of these bands that are a little bit older. So right now I'm on Master of Reality. My first Black Sabbath album was Sabotage, and I love that, but I wanted to start from the beginning, so it really was difficult to find a cheap enough CD copy of Master of Reality, and I finally found it. Why is this the album that's hardest to get? Most of the other albums are in Walmart, so I don't get that. But anyway, I finally got it, and I'm gonna say that I love the first album. Obviously, I love Paranoid, and I'm not sure where this one's going to fall. I mean, I've been listening to it quite a bit, and to be honest, I just feel like it's a little bit too short, and so it almost feels like not a full, complete album in a way. But at the end of the day, it just goes right along with all the other stuff they have. So it's great. I mean, it's Black Sabbath. They're one of my favorite bands. But I was a little bit disappointed that, like, when you finish, you're like, all right, that's it. Like, it just feels like there should be something more, like maybe one more song. And I guess there were a few other songs that they were gonna have on there, but it didn't happen. So it just feels a little bit disappointing, a little bit short. And so because of that, I'm not sure where it's gonna end up on my full Black Sabbath ranking in the future. But it's so good. I mean, I love Sweet Leaf. That's one of the, it's a great opener. It really is. And After Forever, it's good. It, I think the highlight of that song is definitely the guitar solo. So, and then I actually really like how Black Sabbath has these, acoustic, or they're not always acoustic, I guess, but these little instrumentals in between songs. Even though it does kind of fill the track listing up a little bit, makes you think there's going to be some, you know, extra songs, but it's a really short album. But Children of the Grave, Lord of this World, Solitude, and then you get to, I mean, I love all those songs, but then you get to Into the Void, which is probably the heaviest song I've ever heard. And I mean, obviously people are going to say, oh no, this is heavier, that's heavier, everything nowadays is heavier. This is one of the most simplest heavy riffs I have ever heard in my life, and it blew my mind. And so honestly, that might be, as of right now, it might be my favorite Black Sabbath song. And that's hard because, I mean, it's probably not, I guess, because I'm not a huge fan of the intro, so I can't say like the entire song is my favorite. I mean, the whole song's good, but the intro doesn't really do it for me as much as other songs do. So it might not be my favorite complete track, but because I love the song Black Sabbath, and probably my other favorite song from them so far. Like I said, I haven't listened to the entire catalog from them, but my other favorite song is from Sabotage, probably Megalomania. I love that song. It's just insane. I mean, Black Sabbath is so amazing. But yeah, Into the Void blew my mind. That just absolutely heavy, insane riff. It's amazing, and I love the vocals on that song. It's definitely the highlight of the album for me. I love it. And I got my Black Sabbath shirt right here, which is the inside poster that was included for Master of Reality. I love it. It's funny because I got this shirt before I got this album, and so now I know what it's from. All right, I should probably go through these a little bit quicker. So my next album that I've been listening to is Facelift by Alice in Chains. I love Alice in Chains. I've listened to a lot of their concerts. But yeah, I love Alice in Chains, and I wanted to get one of their albums. I had never owned one of their albums before. Obviously, I wanted to start from the beginning. So I was trying to find Facelift forever, but it's a lot harder to find than some of their other ones. So I finally got it, and I was excited. It's interesting because a few summers ago, I kept seeing it at this store, and I just wasn't sure if I wanted it. I didn't know too much about Alice in Chains this is probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I mean, I knew who they were and everything, but I just wasn't familiar with them. But once I started listening to their concerts and everything, I'm like, holy crap, I gotta get into this band. I mean, obviously they're one of the the main four grunge bands, obviously. So I love this. I finally got it, and it just blew my mind. Like, it's funny because, all right, I was gonna say that summer I went through on YouTube and was listening to the songs from this a little tiny bit, and I was like, I'm just not impressed. It's not what I expected it to be, I guess. And so I ended up not getting that album at the time. But anyway, I'm so glad I finally got it, and now I'm not sure what changed, but I just absolutely love this. I mean, it's a classic album. It starts off with an amazing song, "We Die Young." I mean, it's just like, how much better can you get for Alice in Chains? It's an amazing opening track. Then it jumps right into Man in the Box. And then you have the amazing Sea of Sorrow. I'm not a huge fan of Bleed the Freak. I mean, it's good, but it's a little bit boring. I think that's part of the problem with this album, is that there's a few songs I would say right in the middle with Bleed the Freak, I Can't Remember, and Love Hate Love. They're great songs. But when you go from the opening of We Die Young and Man in the Box and Sea of Sorrow, and then it's just kind of a little bit of a boring thing if you're not in the mood. And so there's a lot of mood changes in this album, which is fine, but sometimes you want that super hard and fast, hard rocking Alice in Chains. And when you get to those songs, they get a little bit slower and they're long. But I love them. It depends what mood you're in. But then right after that, you get into It Ain't Like That, and then Sunshine, and then Put You Down. Oh my goodness, that run of 3 songs right there is just spectacular. And then the 3 closing songs, Confusion, I Know Something About You, and Real Thing, they're great closers. They're a little bit, in the middle between those fast-paced songs and the slower songs. They're kind of right in the middle, but they're fantastic. So overall, this is an amazing album. Now, I'm really excited to listen to Dirt because that's what everybody, says is probably their best album. And obviously, I've heard a ton of the songs from Dirt already, so it's not going to be like a whole new experience, but I'm excited for it. All right, the next album is Power Rage by AC/DC. I'm guessing that's how you say it. I think that's the problem with this album and why it might not be as popular, because I think so far it's my favorite AC/DC album. And so far I'm through all the Bon Scott era albums. I need to get into Back in Black. I mean, I've heard all the songs from the album, but I just need to continue chronologically. That's what I like doing. But of all the Bon Scott albums, this is definitely the best for me. I mean, there's not a bad song on the album. There's not a boring song on the album. It's fantastic. I think the other albums, the problem, like, this would be pretty much tied with Let There Be Rock if there wasn't the repeat of Problem Child on that album. That always kind of bothers me. Also because it's not the full song that has the ending coda, which I really love on the version from Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. So it just always bothers me, but that's definitely, the problem is Let There Be Rock has maybe my favorite AC/DC song on it, which is Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. But this is probably my overall favorite album. It's just groovy. It's hard rock. It's just classic rock and roll. There's not a bad song. It's so catchy. All the songs are so catchy and easy to listen to. This is pretty much always in my car, in my CD player. I'm always listening to it. I never get tired of it. It's one of those albums I just never get tired of. Probably my favorite from this album is, I love Gone Shootin'. That's a good one, but it's probably not the best one. Probably the best one is Give Me a Bullet. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. The whole album is amazing. But anyway, I'm going to get into full reviews of all of this, but this is just a quick review of what I've been listening to. All right, next we have the debut album by Kiss. I've been trying to get into them because this does seem like, especially after what happened to Gene Simmons the other day, it does seem like this will be the end of the road for Kiss. Now, obviously, I'm very familiar with them through pop culture and everything, but I've never gotten into them. They're just a band that, I don't know, I just was always a little bit turned off by all the makeup and everything, but once I started to listen and pay attention a little bit more, they're just that classic rock and roll that I love. And I'm not talking about classic rock. That's totally different, even though a lot of people would say this probably is classic rock. But they have a lot of the elements from the classic rock era from the 50s and 60s in their songs, and I just love that. I love it when any band does that. And so I was really excited to get their debut album, and I was honestly surprised at how much I loved it. I thought it would be a little bit rough, but I didn't know how good they were at first. I just don't know that much about Kiss. But my goodness, this is a classic album. This is just an absolute classic. Right from the beginning, from Strutter and Nothing to Lose, and then Firehouse, Cold Gin. There's not a bad song on the album. It's fantastic all the way through. I was pretty shocked, and I'm so excited to continue listening to this. It's really good, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm so excited to continue listening to the next albums from Kiss. All right, the next album is Megadeth, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good, their debut album. I've already listened to this before quite a while ago, but it didn't really hit me as much as the debuts as, you know, from Slayer and Metallica. Part of the reason I've been listening to this lately is because I went to see Megadeth a few weeks ago, and I absolutely had an amazing time. I love Megadeth. It's kind of like with Black Sabbath. I started with Dystopia, and I absolutely love it, and I love a lot of the songs from the newer album, even though I haven't listened to it all the way through. But their debut is great. I mean, the first song, Last Rites, Love to Death, it's amazing, and I love them. I love mechanics and all that. It's a great album, but it doesn't hit me as hard as Kill 'Em All or Show No Mercy from Slayer. So I'm going to have to continue listening to it and see if my mind changes a little bit. But I love Megadeth. I just absolutely love them. This is a great album. Love it. All right, next is No Code from Pearl Jam. Love Pearl Jam. This is a pretty interesting album. At first, I was pretty, I wasn't that excited about it at first. I was like, oh, that's good, but it's definitely not what I was expecting. It's a little bit more experimental, obviously. But now that I've been listening to it a lot more, diving deep into it, this might be one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. Now that I have more context to Pearl Jam and like from their Temple of the Dog days and everything like that, I can see where a lot of that has continued into No Code, and I'm absolutely loving it. All right, next we have Unlimited Love by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. This is obviously one of their most recent albums. It's a ton of fun. It's very good. There's a few songs on here that get a little bit boring and I don't think are that great, but it has 17 songs, so it's a pretty loaded album. But honestly, this has some of their best songs. I mean, I absolutely love Poster Child, Here Ever After, These Are the Ways, What You Thinking. They have a lot of good songs on this album, but I think the problem with Red Hot Chili Peppers is that, when they're at their best, they're one of the best bands ever. In my opinion, they're so much fun. But when they do this boring stuff, I don't understand where they're trying to come from with it. And I don't have a problem with bands throwing everything at the album, and just seeing what they can do and having something for everyone. But I think it's pretty clear that some of these songs aren't that well, they're not that well written and everything. So, but I'm not going to say there's a bad song on the album, but there's definitely highs and lows. All right, and the last album I'm going to talk about today is The Battle at Garden's Gate by Greta Van Fleet. I'm a huge fan of Greta Van Fleet. I'm a huge fan of what they did with this logo and just the whole art and imagery with the album. I love how each song has its own little symbol and everything. This is a fantastic album. I think a lot of people were worried after the first album, obviously they're getting compared to Led Zeppelin and all this stuff, which I don't agree with. I think they might be better than Led Zeppelin. Huge hot take. But anyway, I was curious to see how they're going to evolve, because they were probably a little bit too, derivative. But not just from Led Zeppelin, but I hear a lot of Black Sabbath and other bands, Aerosmith, probably, let's see, what other bands? Rush. You hear a lot of bands in their sound, and I think that's a good thing. But I was wondering how they're going to evolve, and I think this album showed perfectly how they can evolve, and I'm a huge fan of the way they did evolve. It's just a more ethereal experience, and I think the songwriting really matured. I mean, the songwriting was already very mature. They're very mature songwriters. They do a great job, but this just has a more, it's hard to describe, a more grandiose feel, and I love that. I mean, how can you get better than Heat Above? That's a perfect opening. It's a great song. I was totally amazed when I heard it for the first time, and that's just crazy because I was amazed like that when I first heard Greta Van Fleet, and so to hear a brand new song and be amazed again, it's just amazing. They have the power to do that. They're that good. And so this entire album is amazing from start to finish. There's no let up. It's that good. And every single song, you're like, all right, hold on. This is the songs seem longer for sure, and they might not be as, single worthy in a way, but I think you have to listen to Greta Van Fleet albums as an experience, because every single song has, you know, different flows, like, and different you know, a different trajectory and path, and every song has that moment, multiple moments where you're like, all right, that song does stick in my mind, and it has great melodies and great parts to it that you can't, that are just completely unforgettable. But every part of every song is good. That's what's crazy. But you're like, the whole album kind of flows together, so you start forgetting, like, all right, which song is this and how does this part go? But then once it gets into it, you're like, holy crap, this song is just as good as the last one, and then the next one is just as good as that one. It just goes on and on and on. It's such a great album. I am so excited to see what they're going to do with their new album coming this summer. I think it's called Stardust or something like that. No, it's called Starcatcher. That's what it is. I'm so excited. The first single from that is really good. So I've been listening to this a ton. Once you start listening to Greta Van Fleet, it's hard to stop because they're that good. They're just so talented. So, and I also really love listening to the new guitar things that they come up with. And I love the drummer. I think he does an amazing job on this album. I mean, he's been doing a great job for the entire time, but I think every single member of the band really shines on this album. This shows how they're coming into their own and making their own style, and I absolutely love it. But anyway, these are the albums I've been listening to lately. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you've been listening to. I would love to hear that because I'm always open to suggestions. I want to listen to new music. You know, sometimes you don't know what to listen to next, so leave them in the comments below if you have any suggestions. Also, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to go into in-depth reviews on a lot of these albums over time, so stay tuned for that. It should be a lot of fun. So anyway, I will see you in the next one.